Welcome back. Now, it all started with the recall to service of Abdul Rashid Maina, the former chairman of the Presidential Pension Task Force, who fled the country after he was alleged to have squandered about 2.7 billion naira pension funds. Maina, who absconded from work in 2013 after being declared wanted by the EFCC, shockingly reappeared at his duty post in September 2017. He was reported to have been reabsorbed and promoted in the Federal Civil Service. Now, his reinstatement, of course, sparked outcry from Nigerians with heavy bashing, of course, of the government. President Muhammadu Buhari quickly ordered his dismissal and prosecution. The Senate, which considered the development as an embarrassment, decided to look into the matter. The issue falls on the table of three principal players: the head of service of the Federation, Winifred Oyo-Ita, Minister of Interior, Abdul Rahman Dambazao, and the Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami. Now, like Pontius Pilate, all three washed their hands of the matter until they started contradicting one another at the Senate hearing. The Senate is expected to resume investigation on the matter this year. However, in a latest development last week, the Attorney General of the Federation approached the Federal High Court in Abuja to seek an order of interim injunction stopping the Senate from probing the matter. Malami is challenging the powers of the National Assembly to investigate the circumstances that led to Maina's recall. Now, the AGF wants the court to, among other things, determine whether the National Assembly has the right to probe issues relating to the employment, attendance at work, disengagement, reinstatement, and promotion of a civil servant. He also wants the court to determine whether the employment, attendance at work, disengagement, reinstatement, or promotion of a civil servant are matters outside the exclusive and concurrent legislative list contained in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. Now, the National Assembly cannot legitimately regulate the employment, attendance at work, disengagement, reinstatement, or promotion of a civil servant, which are matters exclusively within the purview of the Federal Civil Service Commission under the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. He also wants a declaration now from the court that the National Assembly lacks the power or lacks the legislative competence now to investigate the employment, attendance at work, disengagement, reinstatement, or promotion of a civil servant, which are matters exclusively within the purview of the Federal Civil Service Commission under the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. So those are the prayers he is actually seeking at the Federal High Court. Now, Justice Binta Nyako, who is in charge, has actually refused to grant the ex parte order because he actually wanted an ex parte order. So the judge now refused to grant the ex parte order, and the court has fixed a date for the National Assembly to appear and explain why the order sought by the AGF should not be granted. So the AGF had actually sought an ex parte order, but of course the judge declined that, asking the National Assembly to appear before her to give reasons now why that ex parte order should not be granted. So it's quite an interesting development, and so we'll wait and see what actually happens. Quite interesting indeed. Joining me on the program now to continue this discussion further, I have Nelson Ekujimi, who is a public affairs analyst, and I have Deba Deniran, who is the chairperson of the Center for Anti-Corruption and Open Leadership. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the program. Debo, let me start with you. Are you shocked that the Attorney General will be pushing for this? I mean, trying to stop the probe now by the Senate of Maina?
No, I'm not. I'm not shocked at all. In fact, I'm not surprised that he did that. If he did otherwise, I would have been more surprised, because from the beginning of the present administration, we have noticed that Abubakar Malami is a misfit for the office that he was made to man. You know, he didn't have a record of integrity. I'm sorry to say, he didn't have anything that we should bank on to say that because of these antecedents, we are placing him there, knowing that he's not going to get the office corrupted. No. So what we know about
you don't think he has a point by saying the Senate should not dabble or investigate civil service matters?
No, because the Senate can, you know, they oversight even the civil service itself. They oversight its own Ministry of Justice. Okay, and if they oversight it, if they don't play that oversight functions, we will criticize the Senate, we will criticize the National Assembly generally, that they didn't do the needful when it was necessary. Now, what they are trying to do is to find out the veracity of claims and counterclaims that led to the reabsorption of Maina. We know that the Attorney General or Minister of Justice, I don't know on what capacity he wrote the letter, he had denied that the letter didn't emanate from his office, but it was under his hand anyway, because we were told that his signature appeared on that letter. If he wrote that, if that advisory came out of his offices, and this, the head of civil service, Federal Civil Service Commission, says that much, then there's need for thorough investigation, if not forensic investigation, to determine the truism or otherwise of claims and counterclaims. So if he doesn't have anything to hide, he should be proud that the Senate is investigating the matter to vindicate him, if he could ever be vindicated. But because he could have swayed his hand in the corruption sleaze that has enveloped the whole process of discharge, award, reabsorption, reinstatement, reposting, and all of that of Maina. And Maina said he's still collecting his salary. That also will bring in the legality of his retention in the civil service.
Well, so some people have said, well, the president sees all this and actually does nothing. He's not doing anything. He's not taking any action at all. I mean, the Maina saga has been out there in the public. There's no way the president would say he doesn't know about this. And now that his Attorney General and Minister of Justice is, seeking to stop the Senate probe, a lot of people would expect that the president should do something about this.
Definitely, one believes, just like millions of Nigerians, that this latest, move by Maina should be one that should attract, sanction from the president. But one is surprised. One wouldn't know the cards on the table of the president. Maybe the president was waiting for an independent investigation to confirm or disconfirm the truth of the whole scenario. And
now his minister is trying to stop that investigation.
Well, it tells you clearly, like he has rightly said, that maybe he has his hands soiled. Because ordinarily, I think the move Maina is taking now, some of us had this snippet, that was one of the pitfalls that led to the suspension of the erstwhile secretary to the government of the Federation. Yeah. Because the president believed that the man had not been given a fair hearing when the president, interviewed him, and when the man went back and the Senate tried to, commence investigation, he now went to court trying to stop the investigative committee of the Senate. That was what drew the ire of the president and said, no, come on, if you don't have anything to hide, why are you stopping them? Let them go ahead and investigate you. But, we are seeing a repeat of that same scenario now with the Attorney General and the Minister for Justice. Could
it be that the Attorney General is doing this for security reasons or so? I mean, since even Maina himself had alleged in the past that he was actually brought back to help probably uncover or discover or catch more pension thieves, so to speak.
Well, I'm sure Maina is not going to catch more pension thieves in his personal capacity. If at all, he will be doing that. So no security can be greater than the rule of law, or else we are all impelled as a people. You and I know very well we operate a constitutional democracy, and Maina's office is based, on provisions of the Constitution. And if Malami now tends to take these moves that is at variance with the dictates and provisions of the Constitution, then it tells you that we have a lot to worry about. So the issue about whether he's doing it for security, Maina is not the chief security officer of the country. The chief security of the country is the president and commander-in-chief of the armed forces. He has his service chiefs, his security chiefs. If there's any need for Maina's, move about security, that responsibility falls on the commander-in-chief. So Maina, sorry, Malami, sorry, I'm mixing Malami and Maina because of the my. The truth of the matter now is that it seems there is more that meets the eye in what the Attorney General and the Minister for Justice is embarking upon.
Malami has an history, a checkered history of misleading government. You know, when there was a time when they said the rules of the Senate was forged, you know, Malami was to ensure that there was thorough investigation and all that. And that investigation never took place because of his intervention. The same thing when there was a problem in the Kogi House of Assembly. You know, the Senate, I mean, was it the House of Rep? The National Assembly was to intervene, you know, and he insisted, I mean, his intervention was what led to the National Assembly, you know, it prevented the National Assembly from taking over that, and it would have led to what happened in Rivers State, where there will be physical combat. And you know, his intervention on the fine imposed on MTN by the NCC, National Communication Commission. They imposed about 1.2 trillion naira for the offenses committed by MTN. Malami went behind the NCC that is statutorily empowered to engage in that kind of negotiation, to negotiate for 50 billion naira.
But you never can tell if Malami was actually empowered to do that.
He wasn't empowered to do that. No, well, he didn't tell us, and we have the right to know, but as long as we don't know, then we are left in the realm of speculation. But it is more than speculation, because since the 50 billion naira was paid, he actually said they will pay others, I mean, the remaining instrumentally. They have not paid.
But do you think the presidency is helping in any way, helping this issue in any way? Because, you know, sometimes you would expect a decisive pronouncement or action from the presidency when you have issues like this. And on several occasions when we've had issues like this, we've had some kind of silence now on the presidency, you know, inaction, so to speak.
Well, I am also not comfortable with that loud silence. The president is fond of taking his time, you know, maybe calculating or do, but whatever he's doing, he's our president, and he have to intervene because he's the chief accounting officer for the administration. And if things are going wrong and he keeps quiet, it means that it will sound as if he has ignored, you know, things that are dear to the mind of the Nigerian people.
A clear example not quite long ago was the issue between the EFCC and the DSS, the issue of confirmation of the EFCC chairman, you know, that two agencies serving under the president, reporting to the president, you know, would engage in that kind of
EFCC, DSS, NIA, conflicts of interest, you know, and all of these things happen. He actually didn't do much to settle the, you know, the rifts between these agencies. Because when the DSS wrote 2 reports to the National Assembly, one saying that Magus should be confirmed, the other one. So both the National Assembly and the presidency took opposing sides,
and you know,
and they acted on different reports. And the presidency is the superintendent
in the first place,
on all them that
never have to report.
So he should have called them together and tell them that, look, this report, go and harmonize it and give me concrete evidence that this person worth confirming or this person does not qualify to be confirmed, before he insists that this man is going to continue in office or will not continue in office. But he didn't do any of the above. He allowed people, I mean, his agencies, agencies under presidency.
Nelson, let's face it, shouldn't the presidency, for instance, be investigating the Maina affair, as a matter of fact? I mean, at some point we saw the president come out to say Maina should vacate his position immediately and all of that. But you would have expected that the presidency would have investigated this, investigate the various ministries involved. You have the Ministry of Interior mentioned, the head of the Service Federation mentioned, the Federal Civil Service Commission mentioned, the Ministry of Justice and the Minister of Justice, of course, mentioned. All of this. If the presidency had probably instituted its own investigation, and I don't, if you ask me, I don't think it would have been difficult or time-consuming to investigate this and take action. It just might not have been necessary for the Senate to start its own round of investigation.
No, it shouldn't, it shouldn't, disturb or distract the Senate.
No, I'm saying if that had been done,
yes,
it might not have been necessary.
It might not have been necessary. But the reality of the situation today is that we had the president ask for Maina for his appointment to be terminated, and for that they are going to get to the root of the matter. But still, as we sit down here,
as anti-corruption agencies,
yes, as we sit down here, we don't know whether they are getting at the roots or the branches of the matter.
Yeah, because how long should it take to get to
that's the question, a lot of us are asking. We are as disturbed as any other Nigerian that, this type of embarrassment that has, befallen the nation is being treated, if you are permitted to call it,
with some kind of
kids'
levity.
gloves. It's not fair to our collective sensibility. And that is why we expect that the presidency should understand that, look, the office is, endowed with a lot of responsibility, because it determines the fate of, the biggest black African nation on Mother Earth. Yeah. And the presidency should not be seen as condoning such acts, because it is not only having an effect on us internally, internationally it's affecting our image as a people, and it embarrasses the government as well. So if the presidency or the government had done the needful, and it was seen as being dispassionate, and being fast in investigating this matter, maybe the Senate will see its own committee as being a waste of resources and time, unnecessary. But here we are today because we have not seen any action from the presidency, and we must commend the Senate for doing that.
You look at all of this, you just have to admit that the president himself is not helping his cause. I mean, the longer it takes him to make decision on some very crucial issues, the more he gives room for speculation, rumors, and for people to begin to interpret his actions,
DEJI, I won't blame
differently.
I won't blame it directly on the presidency, because the president has said, the Maina case, for example, that the anti-corruption agencies can take it over from there. And especially the EFCC doesn't need anybody's petition before they investigate a case.
It seems our security agencies in this country don't understand
that are working with the president are not helping the president. I have come on your program to tell you that there are a number of saboteurs in the present administration, including the presidency itself. What we can blame the president for is retaining some of the ministers that are whose function within the cabinet is more embarrassing to the administration than adding value. Okay, some of these ministers have been mentioned in the past. Okay, it's like some of them were planted to sabotage every step, every positive step that the administration tries to do. One of them is this Abubakar Malami that we are talking about, because there hasn't been anything positive that has oozed out of that Ministry of Justice. Okay, there's nothing, because he's supposed to be #1 public defender. He has not defended this Nigerian public for anything that we benefit our life and the life of our progeny.
It's actually very bad. And something you just mentioned before we go on the short break now, something I just have to say, that it's quite shocking that it appears it's just the security agencies and some of these agencies of government simply have to wait for instruction to do their job. I mean, take the issue of the Benue State killing, for instance, recently. The Inspector General of Police had to wait for the president to order him to go to Benue State before doing so. You would have expected that when that thing happened, I mean, without being told, he would move.
No, I don't think.
I'm just saying that sometimes
that's
I don't know why.
That's the reality. A lot of killings have happened in several states, and in normal crime, you know, some of us.
Sometimes they don't. If you're the Inspector General of Police or the chairman of,
some of us are disturbed.
You know your responsibilities.
Some of us are disturbed that media reportage has become the official statement on issues. It should not be so. The media is to report. The appropriate authorities are to investigate and report their findings to the public.
My brother, you see the question of the IG of police moving to...
No, I'm saying it took the president's order for him to do that.
Yes, it doesn't need president's order, but it doesn't have to move there before he acts.
You're absolutely... He does not really have to move there before he acts. I mean, you're absolutely correct. Yes. But what I'm saying is, even if there has to be some kind of movement, I mean, do you have to wait for that instruction from the president?
No, there had been movement before the instruction came.
It's just like the reason why I'm saying this, I don't want us, we're not discussing the Benue killing. I'm just saying it's because of what you said. For instance, the EFCC is supposed to investigate the Maina case and all of that.
Yes,
the EFCC does not need to wait. It's
they
just
don't.
like
yes, that's the statutory function.
A clear example, when what's his name now, the former secretary to the government of the Federation, Babachi Lawal, and the NIA man Ayoke, when they were relieved of their appointments, the president didn't. The EFCC needn't wait for the president to say, go after them. Yeah. Do your job and let someone stop you.
We should empathize with some of these agencies again, because there are occasions when you're just moving and people will say that.
I understand, but you know,
the thing is that we should just believe that the needful will be done, because the will of justice sometimes grind so slowly.
On that note, we'll take a short break now, and when we come back, we'll be talking about the order now. Some people have described it as a threat, but the Chief Justice of Nigeria has, threatened that the court will no longer sit idly by and allow people discuss cases that are in court in the media without the court or the judiciary doing nothing about it. Stay with us. That's what we'll be discussing next. On DEJI360, we don't just ask the questions. What is wrong with amending the Constitution the way the National Assembly members have been doing it? We seek answers.
The Constitution is constituent. Our problem is not lack of laws. Our problem is lack of the willpower to implement our laws.
Answers that provide clarity.
While we negotiate, we should try to make it a point that the girls must be complete.
The clarity you need to make informed judgment so that you can make the right decision and take action. People are saying it is you politicians that are responsible for this, that you are the reason why this is happening.
All these dollars that call themselves governors in this country. I wish we had people like Tony at the National Assembly. God forbid that I go to join that
DEJI360, providing clarity to issues.